extraterrestrial, non-human, whatever you want to call it, life form, technologically advanced, had created this construct. And they go into detail about how they think it's constructed. And when you follow the way they say it's constructed, it starts to answer anomalies that science goes, what? As one scientist said, the only thing you can really say about the moon is its observational error. It shouldn't be there in the way that it is. One of the things the scientists said, for instance, is that on the outside of the moon, for about 3 miles or so, is an initial buffer zone, if you like, to protect it from being smacked by space debris and objects. And then they say, I'm not saying this is absolutely 100% true, but I think the themes are probably absolutely right. Then there's like a 20-mile, they said, impregnable barrier. And then you've got the craters on the moon, which, despite their different sizes and obviously power of impact, they've got a pretty universal depth, which people have said, how can that be when you've got different... so something's going so far and then no further. Anyway, all this came together, and I put loads of... There's a lot of detail in the book. And then I rang the oracle, didn't I? So I rang Credo Mutwa, the Zulu shaman, the official historian for the Zulu nation. And I found that if you take the symbolism of Zulu legends, I found them to be extraordinarily accurate over the years. And one of the things that makes me smile is these mainstream anthropologists and historians and what have you, they so often take symbolic stories that the ancients tell, and they decode them literally, because they're left-brain people. That's all they can do. They can't just spin the thing through the process of seeing it symbolic. Because we are at a time when it's so much easier to communicate what we're trying to say, because more and more and more technology is mirroring the very reality that we are experiencing. For instance, this virtual reality universe is a vibrating information construct, and we decode that information through the electrical into the holographic to create this reality. I've just described the internet, you see. If the wireless internet is in this room, then your computer over there can pull this worldwide collective reality out of the unseen ether. Well, that's what we're doing in a much more sophisticated way. This is why the information construct is so fundamental to the holographic reality that we experience. And what the ancients had was none of this stuff. These seers and carriers of the knowledge, to try to get across what they were trying to say about reality and life, they had to use the symbolism that was available to them, and the symbolism that their audience, the people of that time, could understand. All of which is a prerequisite to this. I called Credo. I told him nothing about my thoughts on the moon and how, what stuff I'd kind of linked together up to that point. I said one simple sentence. Credo, can you tell me any Zulu legends about the moon? Oh yes, Mr. David. He said, we call the moon an egg. We say the moon is an egg. Of course, an anthropologist who wasn't aware of this stuff would go, the moon's an egg. Primitive people, primitive. They'd never pass an exam, you know. Why do they symbolize an egg? Because they say the moon was hollowed out. Was hollowed out by two brothers, reptilian brothers, called Umpanku and Uwani. And they were known as the Water Brothers in the Zulu legends. And they say that they hollowed out the moon and rolled it across the sky hundreds of generations ago. And when they brought it to the earth, it created great geological catastrophe. And of course, when the moon came in, one of the things it would do is make the earth move. And then you've got this ancient theme of the earth turning over. It would, basically, what it would do is destroy whatever was there before. And then they can build, as everything settles down, those within the moon can build their own new society. I'm absolutely certain that's what happened. And interestingly, of course, Bill, as you will well know, Umpanku and Mwani, who in Zulu legends had scaly skin like a fish, were two brothers that were called the Water Brothers. This is the legends of Zulu South Africa. Take that to Sumer, Babylon, and the Sumerian tablets, and you come into the Anunnaki, who were led by Enki and Enlil, and certainly Enki was very much symbolized and associated with water. They were, they were brothers. And again, it mirrors that whole story. And so many stories about brothers, things like Cain and Abel, and all these brother stories. I think you bring them back. They have an original theme coming back from these, what I would say, reptilian entities. And the Zulu legends say that Wawani and Mpanku were reptilian, what they call there the Chitahuri, children of the serpent, children of the python. They stole the moon from what they call the great fire dragon and brought it to the earth. And the moon brought catastrophe, changed everything, of course. It affected the angle and spin of the earth, the whole bloody thing. It affects water. It has tremendous impacts on the human hormonal system, which locks into the endocrine system, which locks into the pineal and pituitary gland and the third eye, seeing beyond five sense sight and being aware of levels beyond five senses. It has a fundamental impact. Never mind other things that I'm saying is coming out of that moon. Being there, that size, that place, has fundamental effects on the moon. And going back to what I was talking about earlier, I'm saying that when that moon arrived, in association with other things that happened around at the same time, because there's a whole story to tell about Mars and what happened to that in this story, see, we look at the moon like everything else, and we see a solid moon. That's the holographic, decoded level of it. Its prime state is an informational construct, like everything, in the waveform base informational construct of this reality. So as the moon came in physically, it only came in physically in the holographic play-out reality, we call five-sense reality, I call it anyway, keep it simple. It was actually information moving in through the informational waveform construct, and that caused the distortion, which is manifest on this planet of all the things we've talked about before. And that distortion has manifested itself in the control system, has manifested itself in fractured human personalities, in disharmony, and in a desperately limited sense of self in the world. Because when you are in harmony and in balance, you can access higher levels of consciousness. But when your energy field is doing this, oh, well, yeah, what's up, all that stuff, with all the things, worry, fear, then you're not in that state. And therefore, what you can tune into and what you can bring down in terms of understanding, awareness, insight, even manifestation, is fundamentally limited to the harmonic, harmonious state of awareness that we were in before, humans were in before the distortion. And like I say, these truth vibrations are healing the distortion. And the manifestation of the distortion is now throwing everything at us to try to hold on to what is something that is being energetically deleted from the disk, which is why the world is going to change dramatically, and after this cusp has got through, dramatically for the better, dramatically for the better.
Now, where does this lead back to about the significance of the moon being not what it appears to be?
Well, so I think that when the moon came in, as I mentioned earlier, it was in association with lots of other things. You know, when the ancients talked about a war of the gods in the heavens, I don't think they were talking symbolically at all. What the symbolism is, we can debate, but that people pick up from that. But I think there's a very good chance that it was actually literal. It was a battle between what they perceived to be gods. And I think the destruction of Mars, which I think was an occupied planet far more recently than people think, and the fact that there is this theme, not just with people like Emanuel Velikovsky, who's famous for it, but also again in the Zulu legends, exactly the same, that there was a planet between Mars and Jupiter, and it was destroyed. And it was destroyed by some kind of high-tech weaponry. If you look in Star Wars, George Lucas, Bill, is such a massive insider. He ain't talking from bloody imagination. And this stuff about in a galaxy far, far away, excuse me, this one, thank you, George,